Natasha and Her Illegitimate Child in a Muslim Society. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This story is narrated in 2 books. Book 1. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer who may quote brief passages in a review to be printed in a newspaper, magazine, school journal, or university article. This novel is a work of fiction, but the entire story is based on the actual life of a Muslim family in Sudan. Therefore, all names, characters, places, and incidents are either the product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental. Chapter 55. In Search for the Truth. The heartbroken husband Wahid stayed for a couple of weeks in the house of his pastor before he rented an apartment and moved in it. He continued to attend the Coptic church for a month after his wife Natasha stopped coming to the same ecclesiastical gathering. When he heard the false allegations that some church members added to the case of his wife, he stopped attending the church too. He came to know that some believers in the church spread a nasty rumor that his cheating wife converted to Islam and married her Muslim boyfriend. The false rumor discouraged him and led him to stop going to that Coptic church. However, he discovered another English-Canadian church and began to attend it. Meanwhile, Wahid hasn't been convinced that his beloved wife ditched him and fell in love with a Muslim boy. He still believes there is some hidden mystery behind her strange behavior towards him. But he does not know what the driving motive for his beloved wife's inexplainable sudden change is. Firstly, he decided to find out about her new affair. He refused to believe that Natasha would leave him for no reason and fell in love with another boy. He knew that their married life was wonderful and both loved each other devoutly. He did neither neglected her, nor he do anything to lead her to cheat on him. Secondly, he is not convinced that Natasha would fall in love with a Muslim boy after she left Islam and converted to Christianity. Therefore, he decided to spy on Natasha and find out about her new boyfriend. Although Wahid left their apartment and rented a new apartment, still he kept contacting his mother. Sometimes, he even called her to his apartment to spend some time with him. But whenever she visited him, he took her back to his wife and 2 children on the same day. He told his mother that she should always live with Natasha and take care of her grandchildren. He often asked his mother about his wife. He wanted to know whether she still loved his mother and treated her as before or her attitudes towards her had changed. His mother told him that Natasha became more loving and caring than when he was there. He also asked her whether Natasha had brought with her any guy to the apartment. The mother said that she has never seen any man coming to their apartment with Natasha. Finally, Wahid decided to pay a visit to Natasha's college and find out about her new affair. However, he wants to do that without her knowledge. His family's serious problem has already led him to drop his classes and cancel the semester. Wahid spent 1 month following his wife everywhere she went and spying on her, but he found nothing to confirm her claim that she is in love with a Muslim boy. Finally, he stopped spying on his wife and decided to talk to her. Unfortunately, before he talked to her, he received in the mail a letter from the court informing him that his wife had filed for divorce. The court letter convinced him that his wife is serious in her decision to break up the marriage relationship and leave him for good. Consequently, he dropped the idea of talking to her. But he began to suspect that his wife might have another strong reason that led her to break up with him. He concluded that that reason is neither that she is an unfaithful wife nor because he is an unworthy husband to live with. In order to solve that difficult riddle, Wahid decided to ask his mother to help him to find out why his wife Natasha decided to destroy their happy married life by divorcing him without any obvious reason. Somehow, he convinced his mother to search Natasha's room in her absence. He asked her to search all her belongings and look for any hidden thing that had led Natasha to decide to leave him. Mrs. Mary Morgus entered Natasha's room in her absence and painstakingly searched for her bags and other personal stuff. Sadly, the mother-in-law has found the sibling DNA test results. When she found that result and read it, every hair in her body stood up. She began to shake and sweat from head to feet. When she overcame the impact of that shock, Mrs. Mary Morgus found herself having fallen on the floor. Although the old woman has fallen on the solid floor still, she hasn't felt it. It took her a long time to come out of that incredible shocking news. Suddenly, everything Natasha used to say and ask her about that dear Natasha began to make sense to her. She remembered how Natasha tried to find out what is the name, last name, and descriptions of Wahid's mother. But she had never thought for a second that Natasha had those doubts in her mind. It is the most shocking and disturbing discovery that she has ever made in her life. Natasha Shams Aldin is the biological sister of her son Gurgis Gabriel. Her son unknowingly married his own sister, and they have 2 children together. It is something beyond her ability to anticipate or believe it. Both have the same mother's name, the same combination of a Sudanese father and a foreign mother, same place of birth, and both born out of adultery. That is almost impossible for Mrs. Mary Morgus to believe it. However, the undeniable evidence of the DNA result is beyond dispute. Then the kind mother went to the living room and began to carefully examine the family photo that Natasha hanged on the wall. She wanted to know why she failed to recognize the pretty young girl who came many years ago with her parents to her orphanage and delivered the unwanted baby which she named Gurgis Gabriel. After carefully examining the family photo, Mrs. Mary Morgus understood why she could not recognize the misfortunate girl and her parents. When that memorial photo was captured Shams Aldin, the family was the happiest family in the world. They had just moved from Russia to Sudan. Therefore, their daughter Natasha was just 12 years old. She looked pretty, slim, and full of happiness. Her Russian mother Nadia Alexandrov was putting on t-shirt and blue jeans and appeared very beautiful and joyful. Her Sudanese father, too, was dressed up in a smart full suit and looked handsome and happy. But then after living for a couple of years in that strict Muslim society, the members of that happy Western family were converted against their wishes into a Muslim family. Mrs. Nadia Alexandrov was forced by the Correctional Police of Allah to don the hijab and put on the Islamic jilbab. Mr. Sami Shams Aldin was compelled by his religious father to grow a long beard and always dressing up in those loose Sudanese jalbayas, which made him look like putting on a woman's nightgown. Even the lovely Natasha was forced to put on the compulsory Islamic hijab and jilbab, which made her appear for those who saw her before as an angel of light that had been transformed into a black demon. In addition to that, the 14-year-old girl who had been deceived in the name of love and raped and became pregnant Sudanese Natasha put on so much weight and became double in size to the 12-year-old Russian Natasha. Therefore, when she saw the happy family photo, Mrs. Mary Morgus failed to recognize them. At any rate, Mrs. Mary Morgus found herself is facing a difficult dilemma. She thought if she disclosed her unpleasant finding to her son, he might have a heart attack or something worse than that might happen to him. He might kill himself if he came to know that he married and fathered a baby with his own sister. He might also run away and disappear forever. If she hid from him such truth, then Natasha's breakup with him would always remain a mystery and would torture him forever. She understood why Natasha hid that fact from her husband and took the blame on her. From being an unfaithful wife, Natasha suddenly changed in the eyes of Mrs. Mary Morgus into an angel of great sacrifice. After long deliberation, Mrs. Mary Morgus decided to share the truth with her son. She wants him to know why Natasha has faked that false story of being in love with a Muslim boy when she isn't. She concluded that instead of living separately and depriving their innocent 2 babies of the love of their parents, Natasha and Wahid could live together as sister and brother. It is neither Natasha's fault nor Wahid's mistake. It is the evil society in which they were born that should be blamed. It is the abominable Islam, which forbids abortion, adoption, and cruelly punishes women for mistakes that could be rectified in a better way. Therefore, the kind Mrs. Mary Morgus decided to convince Natasha and Wahid to stay together and pretend to be still husband and wife for the sake of their 2 children while they can live in separate rooms. Before revealing the truth to her son, Mrs. Mary Morgus talked to Natasha and informed her about what she found in her bag and what she wanted her and her son to do. Natasha stood firmly against the idea of informing her brother about their blood relationship. She said that she does not want her brother to suffer more than what he had already gone through in that punitive and unforgiving Muslim society in Sudan. She wants him to believe that she cheated on him and left him so that he might find another loving girl and start a new life with her. Despite her justifications, Mrs. Mary Morgus told her that she was not going to hide it anymore from her son. When Natasha realized that Mrs. Mary Morgus was serious about her decision, she threatened that she would take her children and disappear forever from the life of her brother and his mother. Consequently, Mrs. Mary Morgus was forced to drop the idea of disclosing the truth to her son. She understood that Natasha was serious about her threat, and therefore by informing her son, she would add salt to injury. Anyway, after Mrs. Morgus found the sibling DNA test result in one of her bags, Natasha destroyed that document and hence concealed the only evidence that proved her blood relationship with her brother. Mrs. Mary Morgus informed her son that she searched all Natasha's belongings and found nothing to show any justifiable reason that led her to break up with him. Then she requested him to accept Natasha's decision and keep a good relationship with her for the sake of their daughter and son. After that, she advised him to look for another good girl and marry her. Wahid is shocked when his mother advises him to look for another life partner. He couldn't believe that his kind-hearted mother would ask him to divorce his beloved wife and look for a stranger girl to marry. So, he ignored her advice and decided to figure out by himself why Natasha left him without any clear reason. He knows that his only source for obtaining such vital information is Natasha herself. He wants to convince her to give him one reason that led her to decide to leave him and get a divorce. He also decided to confront her with the truth that she lied to him about her affair with another boy. Then, he went and met his wife in her college and requested her to meet him somewhere outside the college for a talk. Natasha rejected his request and advised him not to come to her college again or try to meet her anywhere. She told him further that her decision is final, irrevocable, and permanent. Therefore, in no uncertain terms, she is not going to accept him as a husband and live with him under the same roof. Despite her firm decision, Wahid determined never to give up until he found out why his wife left him without any justifiable reason. He anticipated that there must be a genuine reason for her decision to terminate their happy matrimonial union. He does not believe anymore it is because of a fault in her part or in his part that their marriage has been broken. He began to look for another way to find out that mysterious reason. After much deliberation, Wahid decided to find a close girlfriend of Natasha and seek her help. He knew that Natasha had a girlfriend who was studying with her in the same college. That girl came many times with Natasha to their apartment. The girl is originally from Ethiopia but immigrated with her family to Canada a few years ago. Natasha likes her because she is a nice girl and comes from the same country she came from. Whenever she came with Natasha, the two girlfriends spoke to each other in the Amharic language. The girlfriend of Natasha is known as Almaz Abraha. She is an overly sweet girl and has a friendly nature. Wahid decided to talk to Almaz without the knowledge of Natasha. He found the cell phone number of Almaz Abraha in the phone book and called her. Then he explained to her his family problem and requested her to find out why her friend left him and filed for a divorce. The Ethiopian girl Almaz has promised Wahid that she would talk to Natasha and find out why she left him. Wahid waited for a week before he received a call from Almaz Abraha. The Ethiopian girl told him that Natasha did not leave him because of fault in his part or her part. She said that she left her husband because their marriage was wrong from the beginning. Wahid is shocked when he hears that Natasha has said their marriage was wrong from the beginning. This information increased the mystery rather than solved it. How could she say that their marriage was wrong from the beginning? Before they got married and after they married, they used to love each other so much. They are almost worshipping one another. She always used to tell him that she was so lucky to find a loving and handsome husband like him. He also heard her many times saying to her girlfriends and other women in the church in front of him that she is exceedingly proud to get a loving and caring husband as Wahid. He is neither sexually impotent nor an abusive husband. They have a child together so that she can't say she left him because he is a barren man. Therefore, the reason she gave for breaking such a happy married life astonished him. So, Wahid once again phoned the Ethiopian girl Almaz and requested her to ask Natasha why she concluded that their marriage was wrong from the beginning. He wants to know the exact reason that made Natasha come to such an inexplicable conclusion. The girlfriend passed that penetrating question to her girlfriend the same way Wahid has asked it. Natasha told Almaz that the reason which led her to terminate her matrimonial relationship with her husband is personal and confidential, and therefore she is not going to share it with anyone including Wahid. Then, she requested her Ethiopian girlfriend to stop talking to her Sudanese ex-husband Wahid Muhammad Ahmed about their family problem. She also asked her to advise her former husband to accept her decision because it is final and irrevocable. Shortly after Wahid got that ambiguous answer from his wife, he received in his mailbox a certificate of divorce from the court. An official letter has been sent along with that certificate stating that his marriage with Natasha Muhammad Ahmed has been officially dissolved by the court. When he saw that divorce certificate and read the termination letter, Wahid felt as if a bullet had been fired from point-blank range and entered his heart. He fell on his knees and began to weep like a baby who had lost his beloved mother forever. Chapter 56. The Woman's Honor in Islam. Natasha's second unpleasant discovery changed the course of her life. It has created tremendous upheaval inside her mind. At first, the shock and confusion are beyond her ability to contain. Such an awful discovery took sleep from her eyes and turned her peaceful life into a living hell. Furthermore, her abominable discovery has damaged her Christian faith and reconverted her into an irreligious or atheist girl. She reasoned out that if there is a loving God in the sky, he would not have allowed innocent brother and sister to experience those evil consequences of sins they have no hands in them. Why he destined that she should come all the way from Addis Ababa to Calgary and her brother from Egypt to Canada, and then made them meet in the same strange land and unknowingly fell in love and finally committed the greatest abomination that humans would ever commit. But then Natasha said to herself, if there isn't God, then it would be one in a million possibility that a biological father and his son and daughter would come from different countries and cities, Sudan Khartoum, Egypt Cairo, and Ethiopia Addis Ababa, and they meet in a fourth country and city, Canada Calgary. Most probably, concluded Natasha, that God wanted to use such disgraceful social problem to expose the abominable evils of Islam, which forbid the noble social institution of establishing an orphanage for discarded babies, blocking the right of adoption to illegitimate children, and denying parenthood to the children who are born out of adultery. Consequently, Natasha's faith in God once again has been revived, but she failed to understand his unfathomable wisdom. With her limited understanding of the incomprehensible wisdom of God, Natasha decided to research the religious and cultural backgrounds in which her biological parents were born and brought up. She wanted to know what the importance of honor in Muslim society is. Why the honor of the woman is such a huge issue for the Muslim family. Why is the prestige of the Muslim family located between the legs of the women? Why the Muslim family stands and falls with the honor of the woman? Why all family members have to suffer for the mistake of one single woman? Natasha has not much knowledge about the importance of honor in the Muslim country because she was brought up in Ethiopia. She did not experience any Muslim culture. After the catastrophe that has befallen her family and deprived her of all her family members and led her to marry her own brother without knowing it, Natasha decided to research the importance of honor in the Muslim society. She wanted to know why the moral mistake of her mother led to the destruction of her entire family members. It has made all her family members bear the consequences of her sin. Her grandparents abandoned her brother when he was a couple of days old. The angry family members of her father murdered her Russian grandmother in a cold-blooded crime. Her mother Natasha was socially disgraced and flogged to death by the Sharia court. She herself had been deprived of her mother when she was a few days old. That moral mistake kept haunting her family and pursuing them wherever they went. It led to the brutal murder of her grandfather along with those 550 innocent wedding guests. Her father raped her and tried to murder her because of that mistake. Her father did not only rape her, but fathered a child from her against her wish. Because he fathered her out of adultery, his Islamic Sharia convinced him that he could sleep with her because she is not his daughter. She married her own brother and had a child with him because of that immoral mistake, many immoral mistake. Her father is always tracking her life to kill her because he does not believe that she is his daughter. Natasha began her research in Islam by taking courses in religious studies. She took courses on women in Islam. She learned about the importance of honor in Muslim society by studying female genital mutilation or cutting, which practiced by Muslims only. In order to ensure that the girls would not jeopardize the honor of their family, the Prophet of Islam recommended that each family should circumcise their daughters. According to the Prophet Muhammad, circumcision is a law for men and a preservation of honor for women. Sunan Abu Dawud. Female genital mutilation or cutting involves the removal and the sealing of the labia majora and the labia minora together after the entire clitoris has been removed. Problems that result from female circumcision are the woman is no more capable of normal sexual intercourse and childbearing, and no longer able to gratify her spouse's appetite. She is cast out for a younger and healthier wife, citing an article by Lois, 1985, pages 115 to 117. Following the commandment of the Prophet Muhammad, Muslims circumcised their girls so that they could preserve the honor of the family. Every Muslim girl is supposed to be circumcised at the age of 4 or 5. When the girl undergoes the female genital mutilation, she would become abnormal. Her vagina would be so narrowed or so sealed that it would be reduced to a small hole that only allows the girl to urinate. The woman who performs the circumcision would use something little bigger than a needle and smaller than a straw to measure the hole that should be left open after the circumcision. That hole would be a little bigger than the eye of a needle. When the girl reached the age of puberty, she would not be able to practice sex even if she wanted to do so. The small hole will not allow the man to insert in her vagina even his little finger. A man erected a penis would not be able to go through such a narrow sealed vagina. The circumcised girl would experience unbearable pain as if she is being raped, and that would prevent her from having sex before marriage. Therefore, female genital mutilation or circumcision is meant to control the sexuality of the women and destroy her desire for the opposite sex. It is barbaric, painful, and harms women. On her first wedding night, the Muslim girl experiences terrible pain and feels as if she is raped by her groom. In many cases, men could not be able to penetrate until their brides have been taken to the hospital. Then, those girls would undergo surgeries to open or widen their vaginas so that their grooms could have normal sex with them. Some men scare that the people might think that they are sexually impotent or gays, so they would do everything to have sex with their brides on their first wedding nights. There are reports of cases where the grooms used knives or a pair of scissors to widen their brides' vaginas. Despite this barbaric attack, still, this custom is not considered to be rape. In her research, Natasha found that when a girl in a Muslim country is impregnated before marriage, no matter whether she has been raped or cheated by someone when she is so young, the consequences would be fatal for her and her family. First, in a Muslim country, adoption is illegal, and abortion is a crime punishable by the law. There is no pharmacy or store that is allowed to sell condoms. Therefore, no Islamic group could run an orphanage. Natasha concluded that those restrictions most probably created a serious problem for her grandparents when they discovered that someone impregnated their daughter when she was 14 years old. Practically, in the Muslim society, when a girl got impregnated before marriage, her family would be left with a few options. They either to slay her in honor killing or force the man who impregnated her to marry her. In a rare case, the family of that pregnant girl might have pity on their daughter and allow her to deliver the illegitimate baby, and then they strangle the infant and bury its body inside their house compound. This evil practice might solve the problem temporarily, but it would create another problem, which would haunt that family forever. No one would ever marry that girl until she dies in her parents' house. The last option is open for the girl herself in order to escape the honor killing or the beating of 100 lashes of the Sharia court, and the scandal, the girl might run away from home and become a prostitute in another city. Natasha learned that her Sudanese grandfather was an atheist and her Russian grandmother was a communist. She concluded that most probably her grandparents did not circumcise her mother when she was a small child because none of them was a true Muslim. Also, she does not believe that her mother was a Muslim too. As her grandfather brought her up as an atheist, most likely he raised her mother as an irreligious girl too. From this, she deduced that her grandparents and mother were not possessed by that evil obsession of the family honor. In other words, although they lived in a Muslim society still, they did not share the same Islamic values and customs as other Muslim families did. When her mother was cheated by her father and slept with him before marriage and became pregnant, her grandparents did not perform an honor killing on their only daughter. Instead, they took her to that Christian orphanage and allowed her to deliver her baby and entrusted him into the care of that loving Christian couple. And that is the way her grandparents solved their daughter's first pregnancy. That firstborn is her brother Gergis Gabriel. After learning about the culture in which her grandparents lived, Natasha is no longer blaming them for what they did. At least, they did neither kill their daughter nor kill her firstborn baby boy. Unfortunately, Natasha understood that her mother did not learn from her first immoral mistake, but she went and slept again with her father without the sanctity of the marriage bond. Her research in the Muslim culture made her understood that it would have been impossible for her grandparents and mother to bring up an illegitimate child in a Muslim society. Sadly, in the second pregnancy, her mother was arrested by the police and harshly punished by the Sharia court. She could not be able to figure out why her grandparents did not solve the second pregnancy in the same way they got rid of the first pregnancy. Natasha guessed that most probably in the second pregnancy someone exposed her mother and took the case to the Sharia court. Pregnancy out of marriage in a Muslim country is a serious crime punishable by the law. Natasha knew that she would not be able to find out exactly why the second pregnancy became known by the police and reached the Sharia court. After that, her mother was publicly disgraced, and she was cruelly murdered by receiving those 200 lashes on her back. Her mother's so-called illegal pregnancies eventually brought great calamity to her loving family. It cost her life and brutally destroyed the life of her mother through the harsh punishment of honor killing. Her Russian grandmother offered her life for the sake of protecting her mother's life. Unfortunately, although her mother escaped her honor killing, the Sharia court murdered her in a crueler way and more painful death. Meanwhile, the two children of the so-called shameful pregnancies had survived and made to pay high prices in the future. Those illegitimate and unwanted children were separated from their mother from birth. They were brought up in separate countries and by different parents. The firstborn boy didn't know that he had a sister, and one day he was going to meet that daughter and fall in love with her and eventually get married to her and have a baby with her. Accordingly, her research led her to conclude that the laws which regulated women's sexuality in Muslim countries are wrong and evil. She discovered many startling teachings about women in Islam. She understood that women in Muslim societies are treated as dangerous creatures or wild animals that if they are not controlled and tamed, they would destroy their own families. The teaching of the Prophet Muhammad and his Quran about female genital circumcision is one example of many negative teachings about women. Muhammad taught his followers that the woman from head to feet is a vagina and she always possessed by demons. She should be covered and concealed in her house. Al-Tirmizi reported that the Prophet said, "The woman is a wara. When she goes outside of the house, the devil takes charge of her, possesses her." Al-Tirmizi, Volume 2, Hadith number 65. This hadith states that whenever the woman comes out of her house, she will be possessed by demons. So, she is dangerous to society and hence she should be confined inside her house. There is no definition so widely used and accepted among Muslims for defining the woman than the woman is a wara. The term awara is defined in the Encyclopedia of Islam as the external genitals, especially of the female, citing Hack and Newton 1996, page 5. Simply put, the woman is a mere vagina or pussy. The Prophet Muhammad said, even the woman's voice is a wara or vagina. From this, Natasha understood why the Muslim woman is forced to cover her body from head to feet and she is not supposed to step out of her house. For Muhammad, the woman from head to feet is an open pussy. He considered even her voice as dangerous and equated it with her genitals or vagina. The Quran commands that women should be covered by abayas, burqas, hijabs, or niqabs and restricted from going out of their houses. According to the Sharia, Muslim women should cover their heads and wear long clothes to cover their entire bodies, and they are not supposed to go out of their houses or be seen by men. The Prophet told his two wives, Salma and Maymuna, to cover themselves when Ibn Maktum entered. "But he is blind," they said. The Prophet replied, "But are you blind too? Do you not see him?" This hadith reported by Al-Tirmizi. That means a Muslim woman is not supposed to see the man and get tempted by him. We asked, "Apostle of Allah, is he not blind? He can neither see us nor recognize us." The Prophet said, "Are both of you blind?" The Quran commands the women, "And stay in your houses, and make not a dazzling display, like that of the former times of ignorance." Surah Al-Ahzab 33, verse 33. Ibn Taymiyyah said, "Women used to roam about without cloaks, jilbabs, and men used to see their faces and hands. But when the verse stating, 'O Prophet, tell your wives and your daughters and the women of the believers to wrap their cloaks over themselves,' Surah Al-Ahzab 33, verse number 59, was revealed, then this was prohibited, and women were ordered to wear the jilbab." Then, Ibn Taymiyyah goes on to say, the word jilbab means a sheet which Ibn Masud explained as a cloak covering the entire body including the head, face, and hands. It is not permissible for the women to reveal the face and hands in public. Ibn Taymiyyah's book on Fatah, page number 110, volume 2, also in the book Hijab, page number 15. The Prophet Muhammad asked his daughter, Fatima, what Allah requires from the woman to do. His daughter said, "The woman should neither see a man nor she should be seen by a man." The Prophet embraced his daughter and said, "Blessed posterity from blessed posterity." Therefore, Natasha's intensive academic research has made her understood why her family suffered from the two moral mistakes of her late mother had done when she was an underage young woman of 14 years and 16 years. The teachings of Muhammad about the women made Muslims be so obsessed with the importance of their women's honor. The family's honor for Muhammad is in the private parts located between the legs of the women, their vaginas. Such teachings led the Muslim bride to refuse to have sex even with her lawful husband on their wedding night. Her groom has to subjugate and rape her on their first wedding night. In some Muslim countries, the groom must show all his wedding guests a handkerchief or small piece of cloth covered with the blood of his bride's vagina when he inserted his finger in her vagina and broke her hymen and penetrated. The teaching of Muhammad about the family's honor led to the creation of a strange custom in the Muslim world regarding the bride and the groom on their first wedding night. According to that custom, the bride is not supposed to allow her groom to have sex with her on their wedding night. The custom requires that the groom by hook or by crook must force his bride to yield to his sexual desire. Therefore, the first wedding night will turn into a fight and struggle between the groom and his bride. Natasha found out that it is considered shame and disgrace if the bride allowed her groom to have sex with her without resistance. At midnight, the bride would be brought by some young women to a room where her groom will be waiting for her. Then, the girls will lock the room from without and leave. As soon as the groom becomes sure that the door is locked and the bride has no way of escaping, he will attack her and try to rape her. The bride will start running around in the room and scream as loud as she can and call for help. The groom knows that no one will come to rescue her from him, and hence he will continue to chase her around the room just like a cock chases its hen or a dog its bitch. When the groom succeeded in catching the bride, then the real physical fight will begin. It will not be just a small fight, but a real one in which every one of them should apply full strength. The bride must fight with her hands, legs, and teeth. She must scratch, kick, hit, and bite the body of her groom. The groom, in addition to his self-defense, is supposed to tear off the bride's clothes. Though he might succeed in stripping her fully naked, he still has to face the difficulty of forcing her to yield to his sexual desire. In the meantime, the bride will continue to fight and defend her virginity until the last soldier she is must fall dead. The bride fights against her groom because she is supposed to prove that she is strictly brought up and she hates sex. Firstly, every Muslim girl is taught and made to believe by her religious upbringing and family from childhood that sex is sinful, evil, disgraceful, dirty, and she should never do it. Every Muslim girl has been made to believe that when she has sex, she will become defiled, disgraced, and humiliated by the man. Secondly, the bride through her fight is supposed to prove to her husband that she was so strictly brought up by her family that she would not allow even her groom to take away her virginity. In other words, she would not allow any man to have sex with her even in an acceptable halal marriage. Thirdly, by her wailing and bewailing, she should prove to her family and neighbors that she is a securely sealed virgin. Natasha's research in the question of the Muslim family honor and the status of women in Islam led her to make a great discovery. She discovered that Muhammad's teachings about women have produced wolves and sheep, criminals and victims, abusers and abused, and masters and slaves. Because of those misogynistic teachings, the Muslim women are always victimized, oppressed, subjugated, exploited, abused, and enslaved by the Muslim men. Muslim women are reduced to a status lower than animals by the teachings of the Quran and the hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad. As an example, she found a hadith where the Prophet Muhammad recommended that the Muslim woman could breastfeed an adult man so that he could be her son through that breastfeeding. That bizarre and immoral teaching recently led a Muslim sheikh to issue fatwa permitting Muslim women to follow the recommendation of the Prophet Muhammad. Women who come into regular contact with men who aren't related to them should give them their breast milk so they will be considered relatives. Fatwa applied to men who live in the same house or meet women on a regular basis, except for drivers, Sheikh Alobakan, advisor, royal court and consultant, Ministry of Justice, Saudi Arabia. During her research, Natasha discovered that none of those evil teachings about women is found in the Bible. She made a contrast between the teachings of Christianity and Islam about women and concluded that the Bible has honored the Christian women and never given the Christian men the right to oppress and abuse their women as Islam did. Natasha took 1 full year to finish her research in Islam. At the end of her study of Islam, she decided to retract her decision to forsake Christianity. She accepted again Jesus Christ as her Lord and personal Savior and began to look for a church. She found in Toronto City a good Pentecostal church and joined it. Natasha and Her Illegitimate Child in a Muslim Society. A novel by Dr. A.